And I guess as we're talking about kind of the journey of grief and kind of the waves in which we'll meet it, I'm curious about kind of how grief can be quite overwhelming, sometimes really consuming, and confusing too. And it's often quite difficult to take in the reality and I guess the permanence of death. And I guess we're quite curious to ask, why do you think this is?
Struggled with this for a long time as a scientist because, you know, given what we've just been saying, grieving can be thought of as a form of learning,
Yeah.
right? We learn, wow, what does it mean that this person is really gone? And what does that mean for my life? Who am I now that this person isn't here? Am I a parent if my child has died? What does it mean to
Mm,
be, what does it mean to be widowed? Is that different from single? How is
mm,
it different from married? So many things we have to learn. But what struck me is that, human beings are actually good at learning and we have a whole organ devoted to helping us learn, right? So if that's true, then why does it take us so long to
yeah.
really understand that this has happened and what it means for us? And so it seems to me it is true that it takes us a long time, and so there must be reasons.
Mm,
And and I really relied on my neuroscience understanding to come up with what I now call the gone but also everlasting theory. And what this suggests is we think of ourselves as having one stream of information in our head, but actually, the brain can have multiple streams of information going on at the same time. So,
mm,
so for example, we have a memory system in the brain. We all know that. And we have these memories, right? We were maybe there at the bedside when a loved one died, or we have a memory of getting that phone call in the
mm,
middle of the night, being
mm,
at a funeral, a memorial, whatever the memories are, we know the reality. We can tell you, yes, I know that this person has died, and that's one stream of information. But there's another stream of information in our brain that is more, we would say, implicit. It's less conscious. And where that stream of information comes from is that when we bond, right? You can't really talk about grief without talking about love. So
yeah.
when we bond with that person that, we fall in love with the person who becomes our spouse, or we fall in love with our baby, our brain encodes that person and encodes a we. It's not just you and me anymore. It actually encodes this we that is the two of us together as one. When that encoding happens, and we think of this as attachment, it means that there's this implicit understanding. I will always be there for you, and you will always be there for me. That's just baseline, right? And so we don't have to be in our loved one's presence to believe that they exist, right? This is how we can let people go off to work or off to school
Mm,
because we know that all of us will do everything in our power to come back together again at the end of the day. So, this stream of information comes from our attachment neurobiology, which is different from our memory neurobiology. So, they can't both be true. They can't both be gone and everlasting at the same time, right? And this, I think, is why people have that experience of it feels like they're just going to walk through the door again. I know that sounds crazy because I can tell you the reality, but it feels like they're going to walk through the door again. Or I find myself picking up the phone to call them, even though I know that's crazy, right? Because I know the reality. So I think our brain has to really try to understand how these two things can fit together. And that
mm,
process of learning that they're really gone and what that means and how to navigate that new world, that is, I think, why the learning takes so long.